Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sarah Martin with The Contoured Chemist. All right guys, I have all of the color wheels today. Can you guess what we're going to talk about? We're going to talk more in depth on Demi. So I've used Demi a lot lately. It has changed drastically since the first time it was released and you literally had 49 colors to choose from. So it's simplified. And after years of experimenting with it, I want to show you guys how I like to wear it, how I suggest starting with Demi if you've never tried it before. And so we're going to go over a little bit about the basics in case you're like, what the heck is Demi? And I'm going to do a little get ready with me showing how I use it with 3D foundation in order to get the best results with the least amount of texture. So if you want to check it out, please keep watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and thanks for being here. All right, guys, let's get started. And in an effort to not make this the longest video known to man, I'm going to explain a few things, and then I'm going to get into showing you guys. So if you're curious what Demi Colour is, it was released, was it 2019, 2020? I think it was January of 2020, and it was released with 49 colors. Since then, they've added some, and since then, most of these, if not all of them in this palette, are limited edition, meaning once these sell out, and some of them might be gone, I'm not positive, they'll be gone. So now it's much more simple and it's much easier, because I will be honest, when I started and I tried to learn Demi with all of these colors, it was extremely difficult because we were trying all of the things and none of us knew what we were doing. And years later, we've learned a lot, and the company has learned a lot about what people really are using Demi for and how it works best. So if you've seen this kind of Demi color wheel going around, I know this is on my resource. When you order Demi from me, you get like a step-by-step tips and tricks. And this is on there. This is showing every color that is currently available, but those on the website that are discounted are limited edition shades, okay? So just know that I'm gonna show you only using those that are permanently part of the collection, which means that they're not going anywhere. And these are the ones that are truly the best for filtering. So Demi is all based on color science, which I absolutely love. It is a little overwhelming if you have no idea anything about the color wheel, but there's really only one premise you need to understand, is that you are going to be looking for colors in the face, and then say you see something purple, you're going to go opposite the color wheel, okay? And so what that means is that opposite the color wheel, this color applied to an area, this color, it'll cancel each other out. And this is a cool color wheel that kind of shows you how that happens. So for one thing, if you have something green, okay, opposite of the color wheel of green is red. So let's say this is going to show us what happens when we add red to green. It gives you a neutral, meaning it neutralizes it out, which is all we're doing with Demi Colour. We are looking for excess colors in the face. Once you're able to recognize that, they give you this cute little sticker when you order Demi that you can put on your mirror, and then you're like, okay, I got excess this, I'm gonna go opposite the color wheel. That is the color I apply. And so it might sound a little bit difficult at first, but it doesn't take long before you're able to recognize, okay, this blemish is purple, so I'm gonna add something yellow, and it's gonna neutralize it. And the cool thing about Demi is that when you pick the right color, it is I call it magical because I don't know how else to describe it, especially like blemishes, like I just said. It's like they virtually disappear with no texture. And so that's kind of the biggest, I'd say, difference between Demi and all other makeup on the face of the planet is that these colors can actually filter those what we call distractions on our face without any texture. So you can really easily get a no makeup look because you won't be able to see it on your face when it's applied correctly. And the greatest thing is like blemishes, which I don't know about you guys, but with any makeup, the more you try to cover up a more textured area like a blemish that's healing, the more usually you'll be able to see the makeup, right? It's just kind of the nature of makeup has texture, your face has texture, you put them on top of each other, you're just gonna get texture upon texture, and we've just kind of learned to live with it, right? But then Demi stepped in and we're like, okay, I just put that on there, it disappeared, and all of a sudden I don't see it at all, no added texture. And so one of the reasons why Demi is so amazing, especially as we age, is like we can get coverage around our eyes without that added texture that we might have in those problem areas. So my favorite way to use Demi is on areas of texture. I see the best results with my makeup when used in a combination with 3D foundation. When Demi was first released, the reason why there were so many colors is because it was designed to use for your full face. You don't apply it to your full face, but you were able to use some of these neutral shades here in the middle in order to contour, much like we do with 3D foundation. We were using these excess red to red violets as blush and lip color. You could even use some of these darker ones as eyeshadow. But what they kind of discovered was that it was, at least in my opinion, it was very time consuming depending on your face if you were doing a full face of Demi. Obviously with anything you get faster the more you practice, but if you guys look at my face, I have a full face of a lot of spots. And so since Demi is more of a precise pinpoint application, it can be a lot more time consuming if you have a lot of concerns on your face like I do, or large areas of concern. This is again why I like using it with 3D. I can cover large areas with 3D in seconds and then go in and just focus my Demi on those areas that give texture issues, like maybe around my nose, around my eyes, blemishes for sure, or areas of hyperpigmentation that tend to just kind of peek out through my 3D foundation. So in the beginning when Demi was released, artists had to go through a certification process in order to teach it, since it was such a different type of product. That is no longer the case. So you will see a lot of people showing it in different ways, but I warn you, they're not all how it's designed and how it's meant to be used. And so if you use it in other ways, you're gonna lose some of the magic that is Demi, meaning the fact that it gives no added texture. If you apply a lot of Demi to large areas of your face, it's gonna do the opposite. It's gonna do exactly what all the other makeup does when you apply too much. It's gonna give you texture. And since these creams have very different consistencies than our actual 3D foundation creams, they don't layer well, in my opinion. So Demi's are designed to use the smallest amount possible just on the area of excess color in order to give no texture, no creasing. You don't have to set it, all of those things. That's where the magic is, right? That it's almost invisible. It doesn't look like makeup. On the other hand, when I see someone apply a lot of a color underneath the entire eye and then put 3D foundation over it, you lose all of the magical properties of Demi. You're no longer gonna see no texture, you're no longer gonna see no creasing. And the fact is that 3D foundations are all the same formulation, okay? All of these are created the same. These layer really well and are made for buildable coverage. Demi is not. Demi is meant to be a very tiny amount. Otherwise, you start seeing the texture of the product itself, because these creams are much, I don't even like to call them creams. They're much more like waxy texture. They're not the same formulation of 3D. So when you put Demi underneath 3D, you simply see the texture of Demi. And so you lose that no texture quality. But also, you guys have seen me apply 3D. I'm always emphasizing the fact that if you use a color corrector, you gotta press on the shade over it or you're gonna move this and lose coverage. Same thing goes, since Demi is a more precise application, you put 3D over it, you move all of your coverage and suddenly you're gonna be like, it's not doing anything. I feel like a lot of people are using it in that way just because they don't understand how the product works, or because they renamed them and are now calling them Demi Correctors. I find it misleading. So they're not a corrector in the same way that I call a color corrector part of 3D foundation, the one that you put down first, the one that will correct your concerns and add more coverage. Correctors and Demi, I use the opposite. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put on my 3D foundation like normal. I completely skip the brightener when I'm doing this because I use Demi under my eyes. I don't necessarily need a brightener. Now, if you are one of those people that need the brightener because your neck is lighter than your face, that is a non-negotiable. You're gonna need to press it along your jawline, center of the chin, maybe even this area to kind of bring in those tones from your neck. But since I match pretty well, I'm going to just be using Demi to brighten here and filter at the same time because Demi does brighten really well. I naturally am very light under my eyes actually. It just kind of evens out when I usually use my color corrector, but I will show you how bright you can get your under eyes even with Demi. Demi, even though now it's not marketed as, okay, a full face, that doesn't mean you can't use it and have a no makeup look, or use it in a few areas and then go in with just a bronzer or your normal 3D contour. You totally can. I'm just saying, I personally, it doesn't work very well for me because of all of this that I like evened out first. If I was to go in with Demi, this is the brush that everyone has to have, the spot brush. This is how precise this application is. If I was gonna go into Demi with and hit every dark point on my face, I'd be here a very long time. Same thing goes for rosacea. Hyperpigmentation is a big one. So I get asked all the time if Demi's a good choice, and I usually recommend starting with 3D foundation if you've never tried anything from Seint before. It's easier, it's faster, there's a learning curve because this is not traditional liquid foundation. And so once you learn that, you can easily add a Demi color if you're wanting to just try it or maybe target one thing. In my opinion, starting with all 3D foundation and Demi all at the same time is a lot, because the learning curve of just learning the colors that are in your own face can be steep for some people. Some people pick it up really quick. Depends on if you've ever looked at a color wheel before. Depends on how well you can see your own skin, the look you're going for. I'd say most of all, just your skin. There are some people out there that literally might be able to just go and like touch one spot and their under eyes are gonna be suddenly brightened and completely filtered. But not everyone has very easy under eyes. I'd say under eyes are the hardest thing. So sometimes it's good to just do 3D everywhere, and then you can pick up some Demi and try just under your eyes to learn it, okay? And then you can always branch out. But I'd say most of the colors you're gonna need for your under eyes, you're gonna need for your full face. It's no longer a rainbow of things that you're like, okay, I have no idea what is the difference between. What I'm gonna show you guys, I use pretty much the Wide Awake edit. I switch out, it comes with R1, and I switch it with OR1, which is this one, which has just got a touch more orange in it because I have darker points in my face. The key with this application method is less is more. Because it doesn't matter if you are applying way too much 3D foundation, you're gonna get texture when you put Demi over it. Now, I like to personally use a brush that picks up the least amount of product possible. So this is the blend brush. It is a 3D brush. This is, sorry, this was an artist exclusive one. It looks like this. This is the shape brush, okay? So this brush is very similar to this one. This one's a little bit more rounded. I actually really love this end as opposed to this end, but I prefer this end as opposed to this end. I wish they were interchangeable. So the blend brush or the shape brush, I'm actually gonna probably show you today the shape brush because I don't think I've ever shown you guys on here, and how to use this for 3D foundation. The trick with 3D is you want to either go as light-handed over any areas you know you're gonna want to use Demi on. So for me, I barely touch this area of my face. I will completely skip my under eyes. And so that way, when I go to put Demi to completely filter out that area, it's not gonna be layered over a mound of another cream. It's gonna be able to be mostly just on skin. Now, I know it can be really hard to skip entire areas or skip spots on the face, so you don't have to be like crazy about it, but when it comes to under eyes, I go all the way up to this brow bone where you, or not brow bone, that's not brow, orbital bone right here, because you can see I've got a lot of hyperpigmentation right through here. So I will go all the way up to that area, and then I will just use Demi right under the eyes. Your eyes might be different. You might be able to do your entire under eye and just skip the maybe very darkest points. It just kind of depends. If you want to skip this area with 3D and use it there, blemishes, I would say you could even put on your foundation and kind of gently just take off some spots and then use your Demi. Completely up to you, but in my opinion, the easiest way to learn Demi is in conjunction with 3D foundation. It's also the fastest method, because if you go in with a pinpointed brush like this and try to filter your entire face and get it to look like your face done with 3D, it would take you hours, okay? And so when we're first learning, it's gonna take a little bit longer to begin with, so just know that and make it easy on yourself. So let's go ahead and get started. All I have on is my sunscreen, my glow screen. I am gonna use the shape brush. Again, it is in silver for you guys, but I'm gonna go ahead and use this brush just because I wanna show you how light-handed. Now, just because I'm using Demi does not mean I'm skipping my color corrector. Not using a color corrector with 3D does not give you a more natural look. It will only give you coverage and longevity issues. So I'm still gonna use it. I'm just gonna need even less because I'm not gonna use it around my eyes, but this entire area of my face, I need it. Now, I get asked a lot about redness. When it comes to Demi, if you have large areas of redness like rosacea like I do, to where it's, if you look really closely, it's literally covering this entire area of my face. It goes across here, here, goes up into here. But with Demi, you have to pinpoint those areas. Since I have hyperpigmentation in between, Demi is not a makeup application to where you can sweep a large area. If I was to do that, all of those areas of hyperpigmentation would be pulled a funky color, because hyperpigmentation and redness are two different excess colors in our skin. Hyperpigmentation is normally green to blue, and so you would normally need something red to orange. Excess redness in our skin is what we call redness, is actually usually purple. This is not red. This is not red. It's one of the biggest misconceptions about Demi Colour is people think they need green. You do not need green, G1, unless you get very stop sign red spots on your face. Remembering, Demi is excess color, not just what it looks like on skin tone, okay? Excess red would be literally like a stoplight, as red as you possibly can. In fact, I was trying to look to see if I had anything on my face that was that saturated, but I don't have any blemishes that look like that. But if your blemishes do get like fire engine red, then you would need a green of some sort. I never use green, ever. I'm gonna explain, reds are saturated, okay? Purples are saturated but have darkness, meaning they have more blue in them, okay? So I have more purple, and most people, rosacea is excess purple. Like if you look at, I have this cherry angioma on the side of my face. And you might be like, oh, that looks red. No, it's vibrant, it's a little bit saturated, but it's also dark. You can tell it's a dark point on my face. That's purple, okay? So unless it's red, not dark, then you do not need green, okay? So for my, what I would call redness from rosacea, my excess purple, I would need a yellow, okay? So those are two different things, meaning I would have to pinpoint all my dark points and then pinpoint all of the purple in between. In my opinion, that is way too time consuming because I could simply use mango in 2 seconds and have it canceled out. So it depends on your face. And if you have a large area of redness, because I get a lot of clients that have their entire face is red and then their neck is not, Demi is not your best choice for redness. You can use it for smaller areas of redness really easily, but large areas, it can never tone down the warmth in the same way because you don't use it over a large surface area. It's not designed for that. Okay, so for me personally, the only time I would ever use Demi to correct my excess purple is if I had blemishes, which a lot of times are purple, and then my broken capillaries. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Same thing goes for hyperpigmentation melasma. It depends on your melasma. I have clients that had really large portions to where it was covering most of their forehead, and they had a lot of difficulty trying Demi because it, again, is not something that you can apply to a large surface area, and you'll see more when I actually show you just how in-depth this spot alone is to cover. But just remember, if it is larger than a sesame seed, it will use more than one Demi Colour. And so you got to think, if you have a large area, you're going to be pinpointing a lot of points within that are the size of a sesame seed in order to filter it out. So again, 3D is usually better across large areas of the face. And then I have some darker points here. I always hit with Demi after my 3D and it just makes them vanish. But it's small pinpoint application. So you got to look at your face and determine what is easiest for you. And sometimes, in my opinion, it's the least time consuming of the options. Okay, so I don't want to take too much time, so I'm going to go ahead and just use my 3D foundation, again, my color corrector in my mane, and the shape brush, and go ahead and give myself a little bit of coverage before going in with my Demi. Okay, before I fully cover my nose, let's talk about noses. Noses a lot of times are red or darker than your full face. When you're using Demi, it depends on your nose. So the Demi is the hardest thing for me to ever use on my nose, to be honest, because if you can look really up close, I have a lot of dark points. My entire nose is darker than the rest of my face. And so if I was to use just Demi there, I'd have to pinpoint every dark point, and it still never fully matches the rest of my face. It helps, and I can get rid of my broken capillaries, but again, it's one of those things that I can simply buff on my color corrector real lightly, and even that out in 2 seconds. And so then I can go back in, and if I still have dark points or broken capillaries showing through, then Demi is a good option. So if I was to use Demi under it, noses give texture more than any other area as well. So that would not work well at all. Okay, so far my color corrector, I'm gonna go ahead and use it across my eyelids in order to even those out. I get asked a lot about using Demi as eyeshadow. I'll be honest, the filter colors, the ones that are permanent right now, aren't for eyeshadows. Those will filter out excess. They're brightening colors. They're not, you might be able to brighten with them a little bit, but they're not going to give you the look of an eyeshadow. Those that would look like an eyeshadow would be more in this neutral range. The ones that were designed as sculpts, which were designed as contours. I have used NR as one, NV plus one, even as an eyeliner. For me personally, they don't stay as well. And so I know I have very oily, mature eyelids. They just don't work well for me. They might work for some people, but for me personally, I have to correct with my 3D. Even Demi will crease in this area if I try to correct. And you also have to pinpoint veins. It's hard to describe until you've tried one. They just, even though they're extremely pigmented, because of the formulation, they're more, I don't want to say they're more sheared. They just are not going to give that color. Like, they're designed to be very pigmented so that you can use very, very little, but they don't build up easily. So you can't exactly apply a bunch of this thinking you're going to get the color in the 10. You won't. And so even this, what looks like very dark, when I try to use it as an eyeliner, is actually very sheer. This actually makes a really good lip liner if that tells you the difference in color of the 10 versus the way it will actually look. So I'm gonna stick with my mango. That takes 2 seconds. It's all just personal preference, but I truly don't want to take an hour to do my makeup. I just don't have the time. When I do, I love to play with it. And yeah, you can play and have some and learn a lot about Demi that way. But I'm just being realistic that if you're a busy mom like me, you're gonna probably want to stick with this method for the day-to-day, or not even put on 3D foundation and just be all natural and maybe use a little bit under your eyes and run out the door. That is me when I go to my kids' sporting events. A lot of days I don't put on makeup, and I'll maybe just filter out a blemish and this guy and call it good to go. Since I am pulling a little warm, I am gonna use just a little bit of my main shade just to tone down some of that warmth before I contour. This brush is way too flexible to contour with, in my opinion. This one is too fat for my face. Ride or die, baby. I always gotta use that, the detail brush. Now I do contour first, so that way I'm not moving any Demi, because you can see I've got dark points that I literally would move if I didn't. So I use all 3D before I would go in with Demi. it also will help you to not overdo it with Demi. The more kind of coverage you already got going on, the less Demi you're gonna have to use, the less time consuming it will even be. Okay, just gonna do a little nose contour so I can show you how Demi brightens. And there you go. Again, if you want to bronze, I would do it now before, so this brush doesn't move Demi. Just like when we use color corrector, you don't want to move that Demi once we get to that step. Okay, just gonna use a touch of Love Spell while it's still available, because it's one of my favorites. And it'll probably be a year before I can use it again. So stock up till, what is it, March 29th, I believe, is the day. Okay, two things. When I do this method, you might notice I don't even use the perfector. If you use a brush like one of these and keep it that light-handed to where you can touch your face and be like, it feels like skin, I don't feel tacky, it looks like skin still. There's no area of my face that I think looks like heavy makeup right now. Normally I really focus on this under my eyes, and obviously my eyes are completely bare. So this is the only time I ever don't use the perfector sponge, okay? I also am gonna go ahead and set my lids before those crease, because they will as I'm talking, because I have very mature eyelids. But once I do my under eyes, I will not have to set the Demi unless I want to. Sometimes I will still go and kind of press it a little bit, but you can wait till the end. When I first learned Demi, I honestly sometimes felt like I had to do a lot of my face so that it would look complete when it's done. So I'm gonna go ahead and do my brows just so that way I can get the full picture and I'm not over brightening under my eyes. The number one thing, I know I did it when I first started, is overusing Demi, thinking it needs to look like 3D and be as bright as 3D. It doesn't. Our under eyes especially have a lot of colors under them, and it is okay to not filter every single excess color you see. It makes it look really youthful if you can actually see that kind of brightness and glowing look of your skin under your eyes, okay? So me, I have so many different spots under there that it can be hard for me not to overdo it. So I'm just gonna take it one more step. Do my brows so that way hopefully I can be like, okay, it looks good, I'm gonna quit. Okay, now that I think about it, I'm gonna take it one step further and just use my magic eraser, which is Chai. It's about the color of my lid, but here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take it and windshield wiper it across my entire eye. Okay, and even under my eye. Now, if you can see, I naturally just have a lot of purple along my lash line. But when I was learning Demi, I realized if I try to correct that and put Demi all the way up to my lash line, all these little bitty wrinkles that we have along the lash line naturally, because when you hit my age, you have them, right? You could get Demi collecting right there. Now, what this does, it kind of sets that area, and look at it. It corrects that purple, that pale purple tone so much that suddenly I feel like I need a lot less filtering under my eye. So that was one thing that helped me when I first started, was realizing I didn't need to filter out at all. My eyeshadow can even do a lot, and this is just kind of giving me a touch, and then I can always add if I want more of that halo along the lash line. But look at that, like it makes my under eyes look 10 times better. Okay, so let's talk Demi colors, actual colors. Since you don't need all of these anymore, what do you need? And I feel like the newest edits make it really simple. The colors I keep in my palette all the time are pretty much the entire Wide Awake edit, and it's not just for under eyes. I know it is marketed as the under eye edit, but it truly is all I need to do my full face. Now, I did switch out this one with, let's see. Originally, it comes with R1. You can tell the difference. This is, I believe, is it OR1? R01. See, honestly, I can't personally tell a difference on my own skin between OR1 and R01, but I do notice that the R1, which is just red 1, meaning red 1 is going to filter green, okay? So in Demi world, green shows up on your skin as freckles, as hyperpigmentation. What I learned the hard way when I started out is that not every spot on my face is green. In fact, it's very rare. And I can kind of point out to you, because it really truly depends on your skin tone and what you're actually filtering. For one, I have no interest in filtering out my freckles. I was born with freckles. Freckles are part of my identity. Maybe I wasn't born with them, but I've had them my entire life since I was a little girl. My kids have them now. I love freckles. I don't want to laser them all off. I don't want to filter them all off. But yes, I do have some that I don't consider freckles. I consider them hyperpigmentation. This bad boy showed up when I got pregnant with my first child and just got progressively worse with every child. It is not sun related, it is hormonal melasma, which a lot of people get when they're pregnant. And so you might have it around here. Melasma mustache is very common. Some people have it on their forehead, and it is caused more from sun damage hitting that part of their face first. Again, we get a lot around this area because we have a lot of capillaries that run under our skin right there, so we're more prone to forming them there. This bad boy, I do want to filter, but he is not green, even though he's a freckle. So you'll see a lot of things. People say freckles are green or excess green, but they can be. But the darker the point means that, say we have a freckle, we think it's green. That means we need red, okay? But the darker the point is, means it has more blue in it, okay? So if we move this way, where does that point us across here? Is means the more orange we need to add into that red. So that is why we have R1 goes into OR1, which goes into RO1, which goes into O1. That just means more orange is being put into it. So R1 to O1, this just means it's got a little bit more orange. This means it's got even more orange. Now it is straight orange, okay? The darker the point on our face, the more we need orange. I use orange more than anything else. Orange is for excess blue. I find most people use orange more than anything else because orange is used for excess blue. Excess blue shows up as the darkest points on your face, whether that is a spot of hyperpigmentation, whether that is under eyes. The darkest, most pigmented area of your face is most likely blue, not green, okay? Because it's got too much blue in it, shows up dark, okay? So just know that. I always start with 03. This was a shade we did not have in the beginning, so if you watch old videos of mine, it was added later, and I honestly could never get the look I wanted until this came out. And I was like, oh, it's because I needed that all along. 01 was the darkest orange we had at the time, which was right here. And I needed this. 03 reminds me of Magic Mango. It is what I need because I have way too much depth, okay? And this might not even look dark right now because I did use 3D already, but I promise you, whether I've used 3D or if I leave it completely bare, I have to go with 03 first. So I just urge you, look at your face and really analyze what is the darkest point on your face. Try 03 there first. Start there. Once you determine, okay, this point on my face needs 03, compare that point to the rest of your face and see if any other points on your face are that same depth, that level of darkness. If so, you would use 03 on them, okay? Once you've hit those darker points, you can move to one lighter, which would be 01. After using Demi a couple times, you will automatically know, okay, this point needs 03, this point needs 01. And you're not gonna be hitting every point on your face, so it isn't, and I'm sure you probably don't have as many points on your face as I do personally, but I know now, I exfoliated this morning, so my dark points aren't as dark as they normally are. But let's go back over here. So this point, I got 2 spots of hyperpigmentation right there that just bother me because this is a lighter portion of my face. I don't have a lot of hyperpigmentation there. Yes, I have freckles, but these are kind of just clustered a little bit. So I'm gonna grab this spot brush and I'm gonna pick up literally, this is why I use my black brush because you guys can't see it on that one. Okay, spot brush, clean it off. If you don't have a shadow switcher, I highly recommend one for Demi and between colors to remove excess. It is a game changer. Okay, so I'm gonna get my spot brush now that it's clean, and I am going to pick up the smallest amount. Let's see how you can see that. Do you see that? That is the level of Demi I use at a time, okay? Then I'm going to, and I'm always getting complaints about you guys not being able to see. It is seriously the hardest part. I have tried everything. The hardest thing with showing Demi is showing it on camera where nothing ever looks as accurate and still being able to see, because I can't see in the camera either. Okay, so I had a couple little dark spots. Maybe you guys will see better over here. Let's see. I usually have one right here that's naturally textured. And so Demi can take that away better than anything. So as far as being able to see for your own face, I didn't buy this until I was learning Demi for the first time, but if you're looking for a good makeup mirror, daylight is crucial when it comes to learning Demi. If you have interior bulbs in your bathroom and they're normal incandescent lighting, you will never be able to learn colors of your face because it pulls everything darker and warmer than it really is. So this is the Reiki light. I'll link it below. It is daylight, meaning it can brighten super bright. And this can show, maybe I should try to show you guys in this. This can show you guys, see, it still casts shadows on my face. But this is a great way for you to learn personally. It's my favorite travel mirror. I love this, okay? I literally bought this just to learn Demi. And now once I know Demi, I don't need to use it. But I mean, obviously it's a great mirror, but I now know what colors are in my face and I know when it's working. So how do you know if a color is the wrong color? So how do I know this color doesn't work as well? When I use this over dark points, it will pull almost a color that's in the 10. So this will pull pink. It will look almost pink. It will suddenly make that area look cool, okay? So it almost makes it look chalky. If you're putting anything on an area and it suddenly shows you texture, or looks chalky in texture or towards the white spectrum, pink, chalky, cool, anything in that regard, you need to go darker. And I feel like that's the biggest issue, is people try to use something like R1 on a freckle, and in fact their freckle has more blue in it, meaning you need to go darker, you need to go more orange. So you would go to OR1 or R01 or straight O1. Let me try to find an area in my face that would use R1. Do you see these little bitty freckles near my eye? Okay, the lighter the freckle is, but it's still a freckle, those that look kind of like mulchy in color, like leaves starting to turn, those are green, okay? Then as you get into the darker spectrum, the darker the point, like a lot of this area in here has a lot of green spots, and then you see that one is much darker. Those actually have to take O3 because they're that dark. This spot that I showed you earlier, and we just established it was purple. So it was both purple and dark. So if something is purple, we use yellow. But if it is dark and purple, then we go towards more blue, meaning we need a yellow orange or an orange yellow. I tend to use Y01, yellow orange 1, for pretty much anything that looks purple on my face, and it takes care of, because I naturally have a lot of blue in my face, as we established earlier, meaning I use a lot of oranges, so that yellow orange 1 works really well for me. So if I wanted to get rid of that guy, again, spot precision. Okay, if you still see color, use the other end just to barely tap off excess. Disappeared. I use that same color around my nose for broken capillary. I feel like most of them are covered right now, but sometimes I feel like I get a little peeking through. Remember, you don't want to take the brush and sweep it across the entire area. That will immediately give me texture, because that entire area is not purple. But if you want to pinpoint each capillary, they can disappear. So just tap it where you see that poking out in order to get the least amount of coverage or texture. Otherwise, with Demi, much like other makeup, you're just gonna see an increase of texture when it's applied correctly. Okay, I think I got like one blemish up here, but I don't even know if it's a blemish. It almost looks like a dark spot, but I swear it wasn't there yesterday. I don't even know if you guys can see it. See that right there? Okay, when it comes to blemishes, again, a lot of times you hear people say use green because blemishes are bright red. Some people do get bright red blemishes. If you do, start with green. Okay, that one does come in the other edit that is designed for blemishes. Since I personally don't get any that are that bright red, all the colors in the Wide Awake edit are what I use as their healing. I typically never use the green. Again, it can depend on your skin. But I would say the Wide Awake edit has them all, and you could always just pick up the green by itself individually if you need that color, if Y01 isn't doing it for you. When I get a new blemish, mine tend to be purple. They're not super bright red, but they look red, right? What we normally would consider red, but they're not. So mine tend to be more purple, still a little bright, but not quite so bright. So this right here, you can see, can you see it's almost like a dark spot as well? It has more orange in it. So I typically say the bright, super fresh red ones, you might need G1, then you might have to go to that Y01. As your blemishes start healing, they go more purple and then more blue as they're healing and turn into maybe sometimes PIH, post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, where they're a dark spot, okay? Those are ones you will use orange on. So depending on how yours heal, you might go with the green and then a Y01 and then to O1 and then to O3, depending on how dark they get. You might just be able to stop at that O1. I typically go through the whole thing as mine heal. So right now, this guy is still a little bit, at least in my mirror, looks a little bit purple. So there you go. He disappeared. Magical. And I should have waited for a day. I break out a lot. I've got one right here. It does not look purple anymore in the dark, just a dark spot. So I'm gonna go in with O1. I got too much. Do you see how it looks lighter now? That's too much product. Anytime it looks like you can see the product on your face, it's just over application. This is why, like, if you get, say you get this much on your brush and you go in, I mean, it's impossible not to see that. Like, this is still way too much. Okay, when I apply a color, I'm literally applying so very little. You see how you can see it? And then as you move it on that spot, you shouldn't be able to see it at all. If I see it going on the skin as I'm applying it, I'm like, shoot, I got too much. I flip it over and I gently kind of tap it with this larger fluffy side to kind of remove that excess. You can also just kind of like tap with the warmth of your finger and your finger will pick up a little bit of excess. You might have to go back and add a little bit more, but if you're seeing that much product on your face, and I know I've seen it applied super heavily, but again, this will never show no texture. You're gonna see the texture of this waxy cream under your eyes if you're applying that much. So less is more. Less is more with Demi. If you want to see the magic, at least. Let's see, I've got another blemish right there. You see how that looks a little red? Okay, not red, purple. So I'm gonna use YO1. My skin tone is so dark, I rarely ever use just straight yellow. It will pull too cool on me, meaning I need more orange in it. Okay, we've talked about freckles, hyperpigmentation. We've talked about blemishes. Let's go back to hyperpigmentation real quick and do this bad boy. So I told you before, this spot, if you can kind of see all the way around it, it goes up here, around, all the way through here, okay? That is much larger than a sesame seed, okay? Sesame seeds are small, right? So think of this spot brush as like, that is the size of an area you are pinpointing at a time. If you truly want a dark spot to disappear, you have to treat it as there's always gonna be a dark point within the dark spot, okay? So what that means is that I usually really have to look in close in a mirror at this point, and because it looks completely different on there than it does to me, I'm going to get the smallest amount of O3 and remove the cat hair, and I'm gonna hit the darkest points, plural, within that point, okay? Use your brush cleaner in between so you're not getting too much. You get too much, that entire spot's just gonna be pulled cooler than the rest of your face, and you're gonna have that opposite effect where then it's gonna look lighter and it actually just draws attention to it. I also notice if I'm not using an orange dark enough, it looks almost more textured. Sometimes hyperpigmentation can have texture in and of itself, like the spot is just textured. And so that also can exacerbate that. And it won't cover. Okay, so once I feel like I've hit the darkest points, you can see a lot of it's pretty good. Now I feel like it looks better on camera than in person. I can still see a little bit of depth. So now I'm gonna move from 03 to 01. So once I've gotten all of the darkest points, then I can go to the next darker points. So now where I see darkness, I can hit with 01. Okay, and then I just move down one more to that R01. So now it's got a little bit more red in it, so it's gonna take care of if there's any green in that spot. And I usually use very little. But in the middle of my spot is usually lighter. And then as I move through here, it gets more green. Okay, and so once I take care of that, I'm just gonna move on up the under eye. Okay, so we talked about this area. I naturally just have hyperpigmentation. The only area I ever sometimes use what I would consider a wash of color is this because you can't see spots per se. Can you see how it's kind of just like this green tinge right through there? So sometimes I'll just take this brush and I will tap it ever so gently, like literally barely touch, so that I get the smallest amount. And then I strategically will right there. It's just kind of like a first step to kind of tone down some of that green. Do you see the difference it made there? And I haven't done it here. Now, let me just be very clear. Your under eyes are not twins, they're sisters. They will be very different on most people, and I cannot do my under eyes the exact same way on both sides. I tend to do one at a time. When I was learning, I would darken one, I would do one, and then I would go to the next and go back and forth. Play with it, see which one is easier for you. I tend to just, I know I need the same color on the other side, then I'll go in with that. But this eye is very different. You can see I've got a large spot of hyperpigmentation right there. I don't have this pooling as much. I have more like individually spots, all contributing kind of to that depth underneath my eyes with these lighter freckles in there as well. So I'm gonna hit this guy, and I'll be honest, your skin also changes daily. Some days it's darker and some days it's lighter. So I'm gonna start with 01 and see if that will take care of it today. And see, it looks good there, but it does not look good in my mirror. Hence why it's impossible to film and show you guys Demi accurately. Realize I've got a blemish right there. That's a little reddish looking, meaning it's purple. So I'm gonna use Y01. And I still got color on my brush. That's why it's pulling chalky. So let's try that again. Okay, I know these spots right here need 03 because I know my face by now. Along with some of these on the side of my nose. So while it's on my brush, And then on up to that inside corner. Now sometimes where you need oranges actually looks blue. Usually that's where we have thinner skin and you can actually see the colors. So sometimes it looks excess blue and you're like, okay, that needs orange. Sometimes it just looks dark and shadowy or just dark and pigmented. That needs orange. So it can be a little confusing. I usually like to stick with my spot brush until I've hit all of my spots. So now I'm gonna go into R01 to hit those lighter freckles. This is where you see how much your under eye can truly move if you're not used to it. And again, I don't want to spend hours on my under eyes, okay? I hit the darkest points. I might have to go back and hit like one more, but I tend to just hit the points and then I move on. Okay, so my other favorite brush for Demi is the Bright brush. This is my favorite for under eyes. You can tell the difference in the size of that brush and the pinpoint. This is more of like the wash type brush for the under eyes. It will pick up very small amount to where you can literally pinpoint but still kind of wash an area. So I'm gonna go ahead and I already hit 03 at the darkest corner. I'm gonna go to 01 and I still have some blue, but it's lighter blue. I'm gonna hit this tear trough area. And you can kind of see how much that will brighten. And I don't have a brightener on, okay? I just 01 brightens really well, okay? Now up as it goes closer to my eye, you can see it gets a little bit more purple, and that's when I hit Y01 just right there, just to make sure I got the purple out. Okay, depends on your eye. You might not have any purple, you might just be more blue. Okay, I'm gonna go to the other side. You can hear the thunder. It's getting ready to start pouring here. So I warn you, my after pictures might not be as good because I have no natural light now. Figures. Okay, a little bit of purple. Again, if you just apply this thick and heavy, you will get creasing under your eye. Even though they say Demi doesn't crease, anything will crease if you put enough on it. Just like everything, you always got to eventually find a stopping point. And I feel like I'm starting to over brighten this side. So we're gonna stop. I'm gonna show you real quick. 01 also makes a really good brightener down the center of your nose when you skip that accent brightener. So sometimes I just use that and call it a day. Okay, friends, there you go. That's the finished look. I feel like the most natural look you can get is with Demi. Even when you're using it with 3D foundation, it forces you to apply a very light hand. It gives you that youthful look. I mean, you can look up close. I still have other colors under my eyes. They're not completely blurred out and blocked out and with layers of colors. I'm still being able to see some variation, and something about the magic of Demi, it can make you look so youthful and glowing, like bright, without trying to add that pop of brightness under your eye. It is truly magical if you're willing to learn it. It can be a little bit more time consuming in the beginning when you're learning color theory for the first time, but I am happy to help. I can color match you for both 3D foundation and Demi, or send you an only Demi match. I can explain what your options are, send you the step-by-steps in order to help you as you're learning Demi for the first time. I feel like it's a subject I could talk on for a really long time, so I feel like I've barely scratch the surface of when we're talking about Demi. So I know I missed, I'm sure, lots of questions. So drop them down in the comments if you have any specific questions you are curious about. If you're needing a color match for either, that is also down in the caption below the video. There is a link to tell me everything that you want, how you want to wear your makeup. I'll let you know if it's your best choice or if you just want to see what colors you would need for both Demi and 3D. As always, thank you guys so much for being here and watching, and I'll see you next week. Love you.